welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm here with one of my really close friends today, one of my mentors, and just a super good guy. This is Justin Prince.
Thanks, brother. Honored to be here.
Dude, it's a pleasure to be here with you. So Justin and I met probably about a decade ago. I had just my real estate career was getting going, and I had a friend approach me from high school. He said, dude, you got to meet my friend Justin. He's mentoring me in this nutrition company, and I want you to be a part of it. And I told him, I don't know if you remember this or not, I told the guy, I said, you know, I'll give him 20 minutes. That's all he's getting because I'm busy. And I sat down with you, and this is why I wanted to have you on the podcast. This is a podcast about exceptional people. And
I didn't know I got 20 minutes. I thought you were gave him 5 minutes.
It was max 20 minutes. It was not very long. I was had this total attitude, you know. And but I sat down with you, and we ended up sitting there for almost 2 hours. You were one of the most phenomenal, just real people I'd ever met. Just had a very genuine who are you? How can I help you in your life feel about you? And that was why I immediately gravitated towards you. And I've watched you now as you've grown into this, social influencer online, and as you've built these companies one after another. But that was what originally, drew me to you. I don't know if you remember that lunch, but we sat there for about 2 hours, and that's when we really...
Well, it was so funny because you, at the time, the way I was introduced to you is this is Jimmy Rex, and he puts on these big, huge... you did these big house parties and so on, and you've been able to take that same ability to influence people and build all your stuff, right? Now all your real estate stuff, now with your show, and just it's been really cool to kind of watch the dual tracks of our careers, if you will.
Sure, yeah. Well, because we were both kind of young, but we were hustling. I don't know if you remember now. So I ended up actually working with you and being able to get mentored by you for a long time. And one of the lines you gave me early on, it's a line that I gave a lot, is you would always say that people were always trying to attack you when you were building your business. And you would say to people, you'd say, there's two ways to build the tallest building in town. You can either tear down every other building till you're the tallest, or you could just build the tallest building. Yeah. And you said, I don't have to tear down the other buildings, I just built the tallest one. And I used to give that example when I would interview for sell by owners in real estate, because so many people, they're getting interviewed by 3 or 4 people, and every time they're like, well, don't use Jimmy this and this, he's too busy for you, or he'd do this. And I would always say, if you don't use me, use that agent. That agent sold 60 homes last year. Of course they're a great agent. I sold 85, and here's why I think I'm better. And then I'd use your little example, the buildings, and every single person would sign with me. And that one line alone that I picked up from you probably brought me 25 deals. I'm not even joking. So.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'll lunches on you next time.
That sounds fair. No, that sounds good. Another thing you taught me actually about lunch is you always would be like, I'll buy mine, you buy yours, because you were going to lunch every day with people. I do that in my business now. I'm always going to lunch. And you taught me, quit buying lunch for everybody. You don't have to buy their lunch to actually go and meet with them.
Well, a lot of times, you're in the service business. If someone does business with you, you're also providing service for them. And a lot of times what I think happens to us is we're so anxious to hustle and to have them as a client or whatever, but we've got to remember that we're also providing value to people. They're working with us is also providing value to them. They're not just providing value to us. And so a lot of times, we don't have to be just the one that's showing it out all the time if we're also providing, value back to the person.
No, it's well said, and it was a good lesson for me to learn at a young age, saving me a lot of probably just setting up those relationships the wrong way in the beginning, let alone the money from the lunches, right? But I want to we'll come to the fast forward real quick to where you're at today. You have a huge following online. I was just racking your brain of what you're doing, because every time you make a video on Facebook, you're getting, amazing engagement by all these people, hundreds and even thousands of comments and shares and things like that. And so you've really become an influencer online to the point where you teach other people to do that now, right?
Yeah.
And so, and then you are part of a company called Modere. You're one of the creators of this company. And tell us a little bit about Modere, and then I'm going to back you up and really get into back when we met, when we were getting started.
Yeah. So 5 years ago, just over 5 years ago, I came into a company that at the time was a 25-year-old company. It had done $6.7 billion in product sales and was a large kind of global business. But it also had 8 years of declining revenue. And so it was basically a company that needed to be transformed. And so I came in originally as a consultant to this company to help them kind of transform this global business. And we went through an entire process, and in the process, we created a model called social retail. It was just kind of this unique way to engage customers. And we built just this really kind of cool online retail brand. And last year in the U.S. and Canada, we had 2 million new unique orders. We did hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, and it was just a really cool experience. So the two hardest things to do in business, that you hear that snapshot and it's like, well, that sounds easy. The two hardest things to do in business.
That didn't sound easy, by the way.
Two hardest things to do in business. One, the hardest thing to do in business is a turnaround. Because there's already an existing culture. I mean, like changing the engine of a 737 when you're at 30,000 feet is not easy. That's the hardest. The second hardest thing is a startup. We literally like did both at the same time. Like we like created a startup as we turned around this existing, company. The first year we launched it in 2014. We launched the U.S. The next year in 15, we launched 29 countries. Which, like, if you launched one or two markets, it would be like really aggressive. We launched 29. It was just crazy. Traveled all over the world that year.
Yeah.
And then
I was seeing you speaking in front of 20,000 people in Tokyo.
I spoke at the Ariake Coliseum in Tokyo, and just really kind of unique experiences. 2016, we really grew. Grew by about 300% in the U.S. In 2017, we had 700% growth in the U.S. and 1,000% growth in Canada, and then all of these other kind of existing markets were really starting to kind of catch a gear too. So it's been a really cool experience. Lots of ups, lots of downs, lots of learning experiences.
Well, so going back, you said the two hardest things are you doing both at the same time, which is starting a company and turning a company around. So why did you even go into that? I mean, you already had a successful career building other companies. So what was it that intrigued you about that? And then talk a little bit about that. How did you go in and turn that around?
Yeah, I was doing private equity consulting, and so I was doing this consulting work, and consulting's so interesting because everyone brings you in when you're a consultant to like figure out what's wrong. Like they'll tell you, like open up the hood, like look at all the crap, see what's wrong, and you're like, oh, okay, let's fix it. And so I was just kind of there to consult. But as we started to kind of go through this process, I started thinking like we could really do something really unique here. Like there was a chance to do some really unique things. And so I said I want to be part of this. Like I want to like be part of creating this whole thing. And so I kind of like took my consulting hat off and put on. I ended up becoming an equity partner in the company. Ended up going out there and literally in the trenches building the sales community of social marketers around the world and our customer base, and so wanted to go prove that this idea would work, it would come to life. And that's kind of what we did. I just got turned on by the idea. I thought it had a lot of merit. I thought we could help a lot of people, and wanted to get in the fight and go prove that it would all work.
Well, that's great. Well, I know when we first met, kind of backing up to that now, you had already had a little bit of background in sales and things like that. But when I met you, I mean, you were struggling. It was. I hope you're okay if I share this, but I mean, you were not exactly like rolling in the dough or anything. I remember specifically one day you were helping me build my company with you, and we ended up. I mean, we were like in West Valley on a Tuesday night. 10 at night in the back of this restaurant. Do you remember this? It was in the back of this like Korean restaurant in the kitchen.
No offense to Korean restaurants.
No, but it was like Tuesday
Valley.
At 10 p.m. It was like, what am I doing here? Like you were doing it to help me. I mean, you were in the grind. And so like, what was it that like that grind part of the business, that's how you built this whole thing. So I want you to tell from the beginning a little bit of kind of where you started, because I think people see you just gave a lot of really cool stats. But I want to hear from the beginning, coming more of that struggle and how you even were motivated to do stuff like that. Because I know I wasn't the only one you were helping that.
Well, so I think that life is the dream, the struggle, the victory, right? They're all commensurate or equal to each other. So in other words, if you have a big dream, you're signing yourself up for a big struggle that's equal to the size of the dream, and a victory that's equal to the size of the struggle. What most of us want is like, big dream, big victory. Like, let's do this thing, Big dream, small struggle, big victory. And I always, even as a kid, I don't know if you felt this way. Like, I was like a dreamer, dude. Like, I was like, one day I'm gonna be somebody, that kind of thing. Yeah. And I was a little hustler as a kid. Like, I would like sell my neighbors. There was the most worthless thing I ever sold, but I sold it with all I had. Was I had these little coloring books that you wouldn't even color them. You would just get them wet.
Oh, those were awesome.
You remember those?
Yeah.
They would turn colors.
Oh, yeah.
I sold those to my neighbors. Like, I knocked on the door and I'm like, here, Mrs. Jensen. It was like 5 cents, And so the point is, I just had these kind of dreams and goals. And I tell people that the struggle is equal to the size of the dream, but the promise is the victory is equal to the size of the struggle. And so when I look back, by the way, when you're in the struggle, no one wants to talk about the struggle because you like when I first met you, it's like, we can like accomplish the dream.
Yeah, you're pushing for
the victory. But you're out there just grinding and making it happen. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, most people. Let me actually say it this way: in the United States, 50% of our population is living on $54,000 a year or less. 75% of our population is living on 54, or the other 25% are living on 24,000 a year less.
Wow.
The point I'm saying is, it's a grind for a lot of folks, right? It's a real grind, and so they have these like ideas and dreams. But what I tell people is, you have to be able to kind of go through that struggle section and kind of keep perspective of what you're really trying to build, right? So like, I grew up in a family where, a great family, great folks, great brothers and sisters, but it was, we had our own little, I tell people we put fun into dysfunctional, in our family sometimes, like.
My family's the same way.
Yeah, so.
I have it no other way, but
yeah. So my folks got divorced when I was 12. We moved 13 times the next 7 years. I remember my mom had the Monopoly money out. She lined us up and she's like, hey guys, she goes, this is how much our rent costs, this is how much our utilities cost and groceries. And she like kept lining up the bills, and there was no more Monopoly money. And she was symbolic of like we don't have any more money, so like this is all that we got, And those are some lean years. My first job was making pizzas for a place called Pop Murphy's Take and Bake Pizza. My friend, his dad ran this he owned the franchise,
okay,
or the store.
The store, sure. Yeah.
And so after basketball season, my dad got me a job working for Pop Murphy's Take and Bake Pizza. And I tell people, when you're 16 years old, and this is the moneymaker to begin with, so you're not working with that much, but you have acne and you reek like pizza, it's not, your chances of getting a date aren't very good. And so making pizzas, 18 lining and ditches with rocks from my dad's construction company. At 21, I was introduced to sales. And I tell people, one of the best things you can learn is learn the skill of sales. It's one of the things that you're going to learn. And sales is just simply when two people meet, where do they go? Mm-hmm. If you want Chinese and I want Italian, we're going to go somewhere. Sales is the ability to move people in the right direction. And so I was introduced to sales, but I sold animated cartoon Bible movies at the mall. I tease people now, I say the mall, I said, you guys don't remember the mall? It's that place that we used to go when Amazon was a river. Remember a long time ago we go hang out at the mall? And all the kids are like, why'd you guys go to the mall,
Yeah.
And the dude at the kiosk would try and suck you in his little kiosk to sell you stuff. I was that guy,
you,
right?
You just took the job at the mall to meet pretty girls while you were
yeah, right. Yeah, right. So working at the mall, selling cartoon Bible movies, but what I was learning is I was learning great skill sets. I was learning how to work hard. I already kind of knew how to work hard coming into it, and I was learning how to keep a good attitude even through rejection. Mm-hmm. And so it turned into be actually a real blessing. That whole experience.
You ended up growing the company quite large, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, at the time,
first.
Yeah, it was a total win. Mm-hmm. I was making more money as a 21, 22, 23-year-old kid than all my buddies by a long ways. And we sold like $10 million. I think cumulatively, we probably sold well over $10 million worth of that product. And so it was like the most successful guy that the company had ever had in like 29 years at the time. Maybe someone beat me, maybe later. I don't think so. But but I got real competitive. Part of what happened is I had written them 9 different proposals how I thought we could expand that business, and they kind of shot me down 9 different times.
So you're in your early 20s and you're writing business plans for this company that's been around for
and I don't want to overstate it. I was just kind of going to it with tons of ambition and tons of fire and tons of heart and saying like we could do this,
And what happened? They didn't want to.
No, so. I tell people, to be successful, you need 3 things. You need a mentor, you need ambition, and then you need a good opportunity. Like, you can have ambition, but if you have a mentor, by the way, I've seen people become successful without a mentor, but come on, dude. Yeah, it's hard enough to be successful with with one.
Yeah.
Like, you need someone that's kind of been there a little bit and kind of give you some insights and some perspectives. They'll shorten the learning curve. It's like a friend of mine said when he would walk through, he served in Vietnam, he said one of the best ways to go through minefields was to follow somebody else. He goes, you came out a lot taller. You just kind of step where they step. And so mentors can be really helpful that way, that they can just kind of guide you a little bit. But what you need is opportunity. And I tell people, people will look, the most sacred thing in business is opportunity. Mm-hmm. People will look for it their whole life. Like they'll get under the fence in the middle of the night, in the middle of the desert, just to find opportunity, or they'll find makeshift boats. I've stood as you have. I've stood on the border of North and South Korea.
Yeah.
If you stand over here, there's no opportunity. If you stand over here, there's some opportunity. Like I've been in the former Soviet Union in Moscow and in Omsk, Russia, and Almaty, Kazakhstan. For 70 years, there was no opportunity for those people. They were peasants and workers. And then when they could breathe that air of opportunity, like people they yearn for it. That's like means something to them. So you need opportunity. And what I found with sales was opportunity. But I was also like looking for more opportunity, right? And so
your mind was much bigger than what you were currently doing in the moment, right?
I tell people the worst thing for ambition is comfort.
That's great.
Because comfort is the enemy to progress. And what you want to do is you want to always, it's so interesting. I think So success is so relative. Is it money? Is it a family? Is it travel? Like, what's success, right? It's just relative to the person. But one of the hardest things is most of us lead just kind of mediocre lives. And what I mean by that is not better or worse, but we're even not happy with what we're doing, but it doesn't hurt bad enough to do anything about it.
Wow.
In other words, we lose the ambition to really go like move, and because we all like what we're good at.
I think it's more comfortable for a lot of people. I know, like with me, I throw a lot of big events and things like that, and sometimes even me, I'm like, and I know they're going to go well. I've done it enough times. Like I have just my bases show up and make sure it's not a failure. But I'm like, God, do I really want to do all the effort? It'd be easier just to not do it, right? It'd be easier to just sit home. Even like traveling and spending time seeing the world, it's easier not to go do it. But that growth and all the reward for me comes from when you get through it and you realize like all the benefits you brought to so many people and everything else. But it is like that comfort can be a real problem for people if they settle into this like, oh, my reward's in the afterlife, or my reward's down the line when I'm retired,
There's a book called Born to Run. It's actually
you introduced me to it. I read
it. Fantastic book.
Yeah.
Remember, that book is the exact opposite of what you were born to do. You're born to conserve calories and just sit there and like do nothing. In other words, like look at a gorilla. You think it's like run around all day long? Like no, they like eat and just sit there. The point I'm saying is your body natural state is like it's like
comfortable.
It's comfortable and it's self-preservation. Just sit there and like don't get hurt, basically. And so anything outside of that is when fear starts coming out and like the anxiety of like crap, what if it doesn't go well, or I don't really want to do it. You start fighting against the elements. But all of the juice of life is outside of that comfort zone. The guy that actually wrote the book on comfort zone, coined the phrase comfort zone. He says that when you get outside your comfort zone, you're uncomfortable, and I mean that's why they call it comfort zone. But
right.
He says when you get outside it, it expands, and it never retracts. So all of the juice of life is outside of that comfort zone. And so when you go travel like that, and when you put on those events, you come home inevitably, and you're like, that was amazing. That's how everyone is. Like, that was so awesome. Like, I love this. But getting the inertia, the first movement, that's where that real ambition has to kick in to like really push yourself outside of comfortable. Because comfortable is just sit there and self-preservation.
Yeah, it's the Jim Collins book, right? Good to Great. I mean, the biggest enemy to great is good.
It's good. Of course. I tell people in 1952, so check this out. This is super important. In 1952, Ray Kroc was introduced to McDonald's. Mm-hmm. And if you say, who's the founder of McDonald's? They created a whole movie called The Founder. Mm-hmm. It's not Ray Kroc, right? It was Dick and Maurice. Dick and Maurice are in San Bernardino. They have this little store called McDonald's. And he says to him, gentlemen, you should franchise this thing. And they basically said no. And they said, Ray, we're doing really good. They made $150,000 each in 1952. They're crushing it, right? Yeah. And they said, we're doing really good. And he says, and the moral of the story is that good is the enemy to great. Is because we do good enough, we're ambitious enough, we do enough to truly not ever be great because it doesn't hurt bad enough, we're just good enough. And particularly living in the United States of America, like you have been fortunate to be able to travel to really some unique places. At your recommendation, I went to Cape Town, went to South Africa. Yeah. And when you land, you see the shanty towns, the 800,000 refugees that are in these little shanty towns, you realize how important it is in the U.S., we bless our hearts, but opportunity is so prevalent for so many people that it's easy to lose a lot of your edge.
Yeah, no, it's almost a detriment to a lot of people that life is comfortable. You have food sufficient for your needs, whatever. You have enough money to enjoy your life, And so a lot of times it can be the very thing that handicaps you from getting uncomfortable and really pushing for something more.
Yep. Yeah, I think ambition. I think the worst thing for ambition is comfort, because comfort is the enemy to progress.
Oh, that's great. So you ended up deciding to leave that company then to go for something bigger. So what did you do after that?
Yeah, so I was introduced to a direct sales company. Didn't know anything about that world at all. Was kind of skeptical about that world, and ultimately became the number 3 owner, the national spokesperson for that company. Had a great experience, and then that company went out of business. Mm. And I tell people, one day I was the man, the next day I was not the man anymore. Like went out of business, had a little baby at home. My wife, when we had 6 pregnancies, we had 4 kids. We had a stillborn birth and a miscarriage, and she got very, 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 very sick during all 6 of those pregnancies. Like 12 to 15 times a day thrown up. This is
by like age 27, basically.
For me? Yeah, so 26. I wasn't even quite 27 yet. We had the one little baby, and she we'd been through the first pregnancy. She's pregnant with the second little baby. Business goes out, fails. And you're like, I'm not a failure. And I was like, no, it failed, dude. And it really wasn't actually of any real fault of my own, truthfully. It had really nothing to do with me. And so then I partnered with another company. I thought I would be full-time as an entrepreneur in about 2 months, maybe 3 months. It took me basically 2 years. It took me 22 months. And so I got 2 part-time jobs back. I went back and got my little sales job at the Animated Bible Story. And then I was selling, so people in Utah are really unique. I was selling at 25-year-old shelf life food storage. You could put it on your shelf and then pour water in it 25 years from now, and
makes them terrible.
Tastes great,
Yeah, you'll wish the bomb blew you up basically by the time you're on your fourth or fifth meal.
I like it a lot.
Bill Burr talks about that. He's like, I don't want to rebuild. If everything's destroyed, just take me with it.
Exactly right. But so I have this car full of 25-year-old shelf life food storage, animated Bible movies, and then this little part-time business that I'm building. And here I am, just hustling, telling people we can do this. And it was a real full-blown grind for basically 2 more years. And humbling. But here's what's so interesting with the grind. I tell people, your struggle is not your story. How you overcame the struggle is the story. What happens for most people is they own the struggle. The struggle literally becomes the story of their life. Their bankruptcy, their divorce, the way that they were.
Yeah, every time they meet someone new, they go right to that story.
The story that they own. And it's the story of why I don't have what I wanted or why I don't have whatever. It's because these things happen to me. And by the way, legitimate things. Real life hurts.
The problem with excuses, they're usually correct. Yeah. Hey, you've got your reasons to just do whatever.
I tell you, there's always reasons to quit. There's always reasons to keep going. And the reasons you choose will define you.
That's great.
And so there's legitimate stuff, the divorce, the bankruptcy, the abuse, the whatever it was, the real hurts.
Yep.
But the real power is the bigger the struggle, the bigger the story. Because if you have this massive struggle, it's like if someone loses 4 pounds, you're like, good for you, dude, that's awesome. Someone loses 400 pounds, you're like, jeez Louise, that's an amazing story. We'd be on Oprah,
Right.
The bigger the struggle, the bigger the story. The more you had to overcome, the more inspiring the victory is, right? And so for people that are grinding and hustling and making it happen and making those first few sales calls and trying to make, wonder if it's all going to come together and maxing up their credit cards to, pull it all off, I tell people, embrace the struggle, because take really good notes. People will relate more to your struggles than your victories. It's one thing I love about what you do. You do a great job with your podcast of pulling out the struggle.
Well, I think that's
because that's the story that people relate to.
Yeah, and I think that when you're in the struggle, you don't think either one of two things. Either one, you don't realize you're in the struggle, or you just think, I'm going to have to grind for the rest of my life. And you don't really know that the ending can be what that's going to look like. And so you kind of have this hope or this dream, but in the middle of it, you're kind of you just need all the motivation you can get. And so I really kind of trying to pull that out in my podcast is as I interview person after person that's overcome these struggles, I hope people are catching the common theme that nobody's path was easy. I love how you put it. The size of your dream is equal to the size of your struggle, and the size of your struggle is equal to the size of your victory. Yeah. It's beautiful. I mean, that's what people can look forward to. And so no matter how bad your struggle's been, that's how great your reward can be going forward.
Yeah. Yeah, I just encourage people, make it through the struggle. The struggle's supposed to suck, so make it through it. Don't own the struggle. Don't live there. That becomes your new identity. The struggle's not your story. The story is how you overcame the struggle and got to the victories.
In my own life, I love I don't very often think of those times because they were dark sometimes. I mean, those are some long nights working and things like that. But I also recognize that is what molded me. And
that's where you build your compassion. It's where you build your empathy. It's where you build your humility. Yeah. It's where you build your relatability. And what's so interesting is this. For anyone that watches that's through the struggle, what we want to tell people about is all of our success. Like the start of this podcast. Yeah, my company is amazing.
No, but it is a good part. It's an important ending to the story.
It is. But we want to tell that. That's why I love what you do. Is you still okay, I got it. But let's pull out what really happened. Because most folks, and even if they're not in a struggle here, they're in a struggle there.
Yeah, it's
because the dream, struggle, victory is in all areas of your life.
Yep.
Your business might be crushing, but your marriage is really struggling, or your marriage is doing great, but your physical fitness is just not where you need it. The dream, struggle, victory. I did that fitness competition this last fall. That was a dream, struggle, victory. Just within itself over a 17-week period, right? You're had the dream of getting in shape, then you go through the whole grind and the struggle of it, and then you have the victory of like, wow, it's cool. So,
Yeah.
and what you learn and who you became in the process.
Well, and one thing I love about all those types of things when you do a hard thing in your life is you get to the end of the goal, and like the goal itself doesn't really mean much to you, but what actually means something is who you had to become to reach the goal. And that's kind of even with you doing the show, right? It's not about you did a show, like who gives a crap if you did a show. What happens is the person you became and the disciplines you had to put into place to actually get to 6% body fat or whatever it was. I mean, that's phenomenal. And that became that much more a part of who you are.
No question.
Right?
Every goal, so I tell people, set the goal, not for the achievement of the goal, set the goal for who you'll become in the process.
Yeah. So how did you? So you were grinding. I mean, you grinded for years. I watched you, dude. I was just like, I was kind of like, real estate started picking back up, and I kind of quit working together with you. But how did you get through that? Was it? Did you always know this is going to end soon? I'm just going to keep grinding, or what was your day to day? Did you just have your why? What was pushing you through that?
Yeah, people have asked me that. Particularly people that watched it, like that experienced, kind of watched me go through it. They're like, why did you keep going? I mean, I even had friends who were like, so you like still like,
still doing that?
How's that kind of enough? And how's the whole entrepreneur thing going, dude? And what I would say is this: I don't want to get too kind of heady on you, but really, it's I think two core things. One is vision.
And I only ask because there's people that are there right now that are listening to this that are going to need to know.
It's vision, dude. It's vision. Like it's vision and freedom. And so again, I'm not trying to like get super in the clouds, but like tactically, like your vision. There's a verse in the good book that says, "Where there is no vision, the people perish." Mm-hmm. And what we wish it said, or what we kind of translate it to say, is if you don't have a vision, you're screwed. And it's not that simple. Where there is no vision, the people perish. It's not you; it's the people. So in other words, it's all of the lives that you would have affected. It's all of who you would have become and what you would have done if you would have had a vision, right?
Wow, that's
and
deep.
So the point is, like, for me, it was just sticking to this vision of like, I felt like my life meant something. I felt like my life had value. I felt like I felt like doing anything besides like making it freaking finally happen was like selling myself pretty short. And I remember thinking, if someone else can do it, I can do it. Like, I got to be able to figure this thing out. So that was the vision, was go make it happen. That's number one. And then the second thing is freedom. People, we live in a land so we're in Salt Lake City, Utah. We live in the United States of America.
Right.
We live in a land that's is politically free. Pardon me. Mm-hmm. But just because we're politically free doesn't mean people are economically free. Freedom to do basically what they want when they want, basically, right? They have economic freedom. And most of us don't experience the economic freedom, although we live in a free land. I've met people who don't live in a free land that will they would do anything to create political freedom, so that they could chase economic freedom, and they have tons of hustle, tons of drive. And so I wanted to be economically free. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. Like I wanted to be free. I didn't want to be told what to do. I wanted to be free, like to be able to kind of call my shots.
Well, I like how you put that, though, it wasn't even about you necessarily, is you recognized early on how many lives that was going to affect, whether or not you got to that level in your own life. And so I think that is the important part of, like what you said, because so many times we're not motivated by ourselves, especially if you've had a lot of little successes growing up when you're young. You kind of quit wanting to do it for yourself, I guess is the best way I can put it. But you have to really be able to dig in and see who else is affected if I do or don't do this, right?
Yeah.
I think in those moments.
So we'll do things for other people we won't do for ourselves. Like if you bumped a mom in line,
yeah,
she'd be like, "Excuse me, what's up?" If you bumped a mom's kids in line and she's across the way, like, you're gonna have a moment there on your hands pretty quick, right? She's gonna be like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah.
The point I'm saying is we will do things for other people we wouldn't do for ourselves. And for me, obviously, it's so interesting. When I was first introduced to the idea of becoming an entrepreneur, I was 25 years old. My little boy, it's so interesting. I was on the Alpine Highland Highway driving to Cabela's because he was 1 year old. He's sitting in his little car seat in the back. He's now almost 14.
Okay.
This kid's it's just like growing up in front of my face, right? He's 1 year old in the back, and this is so cheesy, but it's so like true. It's just like very authentic to what I really felt. I remember getting kind of a phone call that was my first phone call. Like I could sniff opportunity of like becoming an entrepreneur, and I remember looking back and I thought, I want to make that little kid proud. Like I want him to like grow up and be proud of his dad, like as he grew up or whatever. And then I remember thinking, I want to make my wife proud. And so that was like, as kind of cheesy as that sounds or whatever, that was like a driving driving force to like not quit, not give up, work through it, like overcome obstacles, and develop into a leader and whatever, develop your leadership skills, is that little boy. And now I'll see him now, and every once in a while I'll give him a big hug, and he's like, Dad, like, get off me, Dad. And I'm like, bro, you don't understand how many life decisions I made because of you.
That's cool.
Versus because of like, I wanted to do something for me.
Yeah. Well, and I think you've really been able to, I don't think you believe in balance of all things at all times. You're more like myself, where like you focus on one thing and then you focus on another thing, but you do have a very great family life and life with your kids. How have you been able to balance essentially where you put your efforts towards entrepreneurship, the business side, even this new influencer side in the last couple of years versus the time with your kids and wife?
It's not easy. That's its own maybe online course we should invent or something. But like it's to me it's work-life integration. I don't think work-life balance even exists. I think it's a myth. Totally. I think you can integrate. And so I'll give you an example. When my little girl, she's now 8, when she turns 6, I flew on her 6th birthday. I landed in Australia, right next to the Great Barrier Reef, to do some training for about 50 Japanese folks that were there. And so here I am landing. It was like it's one of those days you've had these where you like from door to door. It's like 30 hours of travel, not a 30-hour flight, but just door to door travel, airports and the whole thing. So you get there and you're like a little like you need to shower and like brush your teeth. It's just like. And so I get there and I remember thinking I had tons of dad guilt, and like I'm missing my little girl's thing because here I am in freaking Australia, which was cool, and like maybe you feel cool on social media if you're like I'm missing my little girl's thing. But here's I'll share with you 2 things. One is I had a discussion with her before I left, so she knew what was going on, and we went on a little daddy-daughter date then, and we had a full party after, so we didn't miss it. It actually like prolonged her thing. She had like multiple
she had like a birthday week, which by the way every girl does nowadays.
Yeah, exactly right. The second thing is this though. My philosophy is when I'm pouring into the marketplace, I'm pouring into my kids, because when I'm dead and gone, which is hopefully a long time away, but when I'm dead and gone and they have my funeral, I hope someone walks up to my little girl, someone from Australia or from Japan or from around the world, and they say, "I just want you to know your dad like made a real impact in my life. Like he really impacted my life." I would rather that they said that than my little girls say, "Yeah, my dad sat on the couch all day long." Like I'd rather they saw me go out there and hustle and make something happen, because I'm pouring into them by pouring into the marketplace.
Well, I'll give you a cool example. I don't even know if you know this or not, but I mean, like, so that day me and you meet. Okay, let's say that meeting goes like 50 other meetings I'd had like that, where I gave someone 10 or 15 minutes. And let's say you haven't developed your character to be the person you were in that moment. Me and you don't connect. A lot of lives changed. I'll start with your brother. Travis became my best friend, right? Well,
Amen.
I introduced Travis to his wife.
Yeah, totally.
And he met her through me, and now they're happy. Just got married a couple months ago. But like that's just one person. That's your brother. And think of how cool that is. All the lives that have been able to be blessed because of who you are. And that's just one thing that you haven't even probably thought about. Maybe you have, but like because of the way you showed up to me, me and your brother connect, become best friends. I introduce him to his wife, and then who knows how many lives those two touch.
That's cool. That's deep, dude. That's really cool. I like that, and it's absolutely true. Yeah, it's absolutely true.
And you have probably hundreds of those examples that you don't even know about, which is kind of
cool. So I'll share this. This is deep as well, but I'll share this. It's having generational impact. Like I'll give you an example. So you ask somebody, do you know how your mom and dad met? Do you know what it was about your mom that your dad loved? Do you know what about your dad that your mom loved? Like what was the connection points? What was your dad's dreams as an 18, 21 to 23-year-old kid? What was your mom's dreams? Some people will say yes. They'll be like, yeah, I know when they met here, and this is what they fell in love with. You say, what about your grandparents? When did they meet? What was your grandpa? I mean, your grandpa's like, what fired him up? Like, kept him up late, woke him up early. Did you know what that is? And what about your grandma and so on? And people, less hands will go up, right? What about your great-grandparents? And less hands. What about your great-great-grandparents or great-great-great-grandparents? At some point, people are like, I don't know these people, right? The goal, I think, is, it's what I call to be the one. To be the one is when future generations of kids who are yet unborn, they look up and they point, like it was her, it was him, like she was the one, he was the one that like taught our family about political freedom and economic opportunity. Like they're the one that changed the course of the dynamic of our whole family for generations to come. Like here in Utah, we have Larry H. Miller. Do you think his great grandkids will point up and be like, he was the one? Yeah,
sure.
Guaranteed they will. They'll know the story. Yeah. They're like, what was his deal? And what was he passionate about? Now look, that's an extreme example. I get it. But like you can be the one without being a bazillionaire. You can be the one by the impact you make on people's lives. We write our story these days on human hearts, right? Like the impact you have in someone's life, and you can be the one. And that's kind of the challenge I feel like I have for me is like I want to be the kind of person that generations from now people look back and say, you know, he was the one that taught these principles or did these things and made this sort of impact that we still know the story.
Wow.
That's deep, dude.
No, that's very deep. I love it. No, I love it. I hope anybody listening to this, like, that's soaked in as much for them as it did for me. I'm just sitting here listening and getting a little bit of goosebumps because that is such an impactful why. So I think so many people are searching sometimes, like, well, what's my drive today? Like, because, you know, success doesn't come in an instant, you know, like here today and boom, all of a sudden I got a success. It's the little things every day. It's the difference between, you know, doing the things that you don't want to do versus doing them because you just know where that ends up being, right? And I think the difference between successful and unsuccessful people is successful people have merely learned to do the things that unsuccessful people don't want to do. And why don't they do it? Well, it's because they don't have that same vision. Like, obviously you can become who you are. Look at what your vision is. You know, you see yourself in that role. It's phenomenal, and I think it's something that everybody will take away from this podcast. So,
bro, I'm honored to you know, be your friend. I'm honored to like watch the impact you're having on so many people's lives. And the cool thing about this podcast is it just builds another platform for you to you know, impact more people.
Well, I'm lucky. I've had so many people like you. I have 10 mentors just like you, guys that I got to really, spend hundreds of hours with. You might remember when we were in DC together at this little seminar thing, and I'm yelling. I got caught by the Four Seasons yelling. They came in and gave me a second warning because BYU was beating Oklahoma, and they said, "Sir, if you yell again, we're going to kick you out."
Bro, that was like, wasn't that like at the Ritz-Carlton or something?
Whatever it was, yeah, the Ritz-Carlton.
They don't allow that.
It was a really nice hotel. It's like shouldn't have afforded to be able to be there. But what are we doing all night? Me and you just having chats and talks at that time, and it's just
even when we went fishing on the Green River. Which, by the way, thanks for inviting me. But like we like private jet in, private jet out. That was a good fishing day. But just those deeper talks. Someone asked me, they're like, "What do you want to do? What's your goal?" Jim Rohn is this kind of famous business philosopher, and he had silver hair, been doing it for speaking as a professional speaker for 40, 50 years. Guy walks up to him at the end of his seminar and he said, "Mr. Rohn, what do you want to do the rest of your life?" He said, "I want to talk about things that matter with people who care."
That's awesome.
And that's why I dig this, right? Talking about things that matter with people who care.
Well, it just gives a platform where I can expose all of my great mentors and friends, people like yourself, to whoever wants to listen to it. And if nobody does, I still have this for my own posterity or whatever reason.
Of course.
So, well, I appreciate you being on, man. This is just a true pleasure. You're one of the first people I thought of when I started this podcast. And thanks so much.
Oh, honored to be here, bro. Appreciate it.
Good work.
You too, buddy.